All right, today we're unpacking a story that's just wild. It's about unimaginable wealth and an almost unbelievable collapse. We're talking about the economic story of Venezuela, a country that literally had it all and then, somehow, lost almost everything. So, right off the bat, here's the puzzle that just doesn't seem to make sense. On one hand, you have a nation sitting on more oil than anyone else, more than Saudi Arabia. But on the other hand, a country whose entire economy just imploded, shrinking by an incredible 80%. I mean, how does that even happen? How do you have the winning hand and still lose the entire game? That's the big question we're going to dig into. You know, to really get our heads around this, the source material gives us this perfect metaphor, and we're going to run with it. Just think of Venezuela as the world's most mismanaged lottery winner. It's such a simple way to frame this whole thing, but it's so powerful. So let's start right at the beginning, the moment they found that winning ticket. Okay, so part one. The winning ticket. The story kicks off with this massive geological jackpot. And we're not talking about a small prize here. This was the kind of windfall that could change everything. But, as we're about to see, a ticket this big can come with some serious hidden dangers.
Just take a second and let this number really sink in. Over 300 billion barrels of proven crude oil reserves. That's more than any other nation on the entire planet. This vast, almost endless ocean of wealth sitting right under their feet. This was their lottery ticket.
So, how on earth can that much wealth be a bad thing? Well, there's this fascinating idea in economics called the resource curse. It's this weird paradox where a country gets so much money from one thing, like oil, that it actually ends up hurting all the other parts of the economy. It makes the whole nation dangerously dependent on the price of just one single thing. You got to keep this concept in your back pocket, because it's at the heart of everything that happens next.
All right, so our lottery winner cashed the check. And boy, did they cash it. With oil prices just skyrocketing in the 2000s, money was pouring into the country like you wouldn't believe. And with all that cash came an absolutely radical spending spree.
So, what did this spending plan actually look like? Well, it basically boiled down to three huge moves. First, the government took control of key industries, everything from oil companies to phone companies. Second, they slapped strict price controls on all sorts of everyday goods, trying to make them artificially cheap. And third, they used that gusher of oil money to fund a massive increase in social spending. The idea, on the surface, was to spread that new wealth around to everybody. And you know what? For a while, it really seemed like it was working. Money was flowing, poverty rates were dropping, the optimism was just off the charts. This quote really nails the feeling of that time. With oil prices staying super high, it felt like this was the new normal. The party, fueled by what seemed like an endless supply of oil money, felt like it would just go on forever. But here's the thing about parties, right? They all end eventually. And when your entire country's economy is basically one big bet on a single thing, you are incredibly, incredibly fragile. The very foundation of that whole spending spree, the high price of oil, was about to crack, and all those bills were about to come due all at once. And this is the moment the music stopped. Cold. Around 2014, global oil prices didn't just dip, they completely collapsed, falling by more than half. Now think about this. For a country that got something like 95% of its export money from oil, this was an absolute catastrophe. Their one and only ATM was suddenly, basically, empty. And the result of that income shock? A complete and total economic implosion. The country lost 80% of its GDP. To put that in perspective, that's a level of economic destruction you usually only see in a country that's been through a massive war. It was an almost total wipeout. For regular people on the ground, the consequences were just devastating. Hyperinflation kicked in. That's when prices spiral out of control so fast that your money becomes pretty much worthless overnight. Those price controls that were meant to help, they completely backfired, causing huge shortages because companies couldn't afford to make or import anything anymore. The result was empty store shelves, crumbling hospitals, and a society just completely in crisis. The lottery winnings were gone. So that brings us to the final part of this whole cautionary tale. What on earth can we learn from watching a fortune this huge just disappear? What are the big takeaways from a prize that was so completely squandered?
Well, the lessons here are pretty clear, and they are stark. First, betting your entire nation's future on the price of one single thing is a terrible, terrible gamble. Second, price controls, no matter how good the intentions are, can backfire in the worst way possible. And finally, and this is maybe the biggest lesson of all, having immense wealth is totally useless if you don't have the wisdom to manage it for the long run.
And that really leaves us with this final, really big question to chew on. The story of Venezuela is just this powerful, modern-day proof of the resource curse. It shows that just having valuable stuff under the ground doesn't guarantee you anything. And that forces us to ask a much bigger question. If a winning lottery ticket worth 300 billion barrels of oil doesn't automatically make your country a success, then what does?